Growing up, I always thought of harmony as a synonym for similarity. I thought that similar things blended in harmony, like the notes of my favorite songs and all of my friendships at the time, and even my favorite foods. These things worked because they were made of similar parts. Similarity breeds harmony. It was only until recently that I discovered how wrong I had been. When I was asked to speak today, my peers wanted me to talk about my experience founding my nonprofit, Anaya Hate. Recently, it's what people ask me about the most, and naturally, I have a lot to say about the matter. I've talked about this before, but when I was founding Anaya Hate, a lot of my actions were a result of fear. They were a reaction to shocking headline after headline about hate crimes, and many hate crimes against Asians. I was afraid. I was afraid that because of something that was part of me, something as natural to me as breathing, I could get hurt. I was afraid that because I was too different or not similar enough, that my name might be part of the next dismal headline. I realized that I had to reframe that fear. I wanted to ensure that no other student feels that scared and upset because of an inherent part of them, because they are different. And I believe that examining and combating hate is best done at the younger ages while we are still in our K through 12 years. Misunderstandings seem to start at earlier ages, but fortunately, we can counteract this and start making a difference also at earlier ages. And now, nearly a year later, I realized why I was so afraid and where that fear may come from in other students. It was the same mindset that I grew up with, equating similarity to harmony. My perspective is different now after seeing increased hate because of the pandemic, because of the impacts and adjustments we had to make because of the pandemic, and because of misplaced blame for the pandemic. I think harmony arises more from empathy than from similarity. And the most important, most transformative, most powerful empathy may be empathy towards people who are vastly different from you, who come from different places and cultures and life experiences. In founding and building Anaya Hate, my idea has been to host podcasts to share the stories and the voices of people from different backgrounds, to use their voices and their perspectives to have a broader dialogue. Our tagline is educate, debate, annihilate hate. Some of my guests have been stereotyped and even in severe circumstances targeted. Others are in positions to put place measures to cultivate understanding and empathy and harmony among diverse populations, thereby combating hate. Anaya Hate has interviewed students, three different superintendents or assistant superintendents, and others. I even had the opportunity to interview our US Congressman, Representative Scott Peters, who has both a nationwide and local perspective on many issues. Anaya Hate's first podcast was with Christina Liu this past December. I led the interview with participation from my Anaya Hate co-founders, Joyce and Steven. Christina was the perfect guest for our inaugural podcast, and she is someone whom I admire greatly. She is the very epitome of heroes among us, someone whose character shines through by meeting a moment. Christina is a Chinese American high school senior in Philadelphia. She made national headlines in November when she stepped in to defend other students from bullying and herself became the victim of a brutal, racially motivated attack at the hands of other students. Christina was on a Philadelphia public train when she saw a 14-year-old Asian freshman being bullied on his way home from school. Christina intervened, and the group of four teenage girls turned to Christina, threw her to the ground, and began kicking and beating her using racial slurs. A video clip of them kicking Christina in the head went viral and is very difficult to watch. Christina was hospitalized. The four girls were all under the age of 17, and they were charged with aggravated assault, ethnic intimidation, criminal conspiracy, simple assault, recklessly endangering another person, and disorderly conduct. I reached out to Christina on social media a few weeks after the incident, and she agreed to do the podcast. At the time of the podcast, the second week in December, I could still see a bump and marks on the right side of her forehead where she was kicked. Some of the truly inspirational takeaways from Christina's And I Hate podcast were her insistence that she is an ordinary girl and not a hero, and her explanation that she would have stepped in to stop bullying regardless of the race of the victims or the aggressors. Christina expanded the scope of our discussion from anti Asian hate to addressing overall hate among students. She also highlighted that the video clip was cut off before her friends threw themselves on her to protect her from further injury. Christina sets an example for all of us. We should all stand up to hate, whether racially motivated or otherwise. We can and should do this as students, and we should work towards understanding and protecting others. By the way, shortly after our podcast, Christina got the news that she got early acceptance to her dream school, the University of Pennsylvania, where she will be studying math with maybe a minor in sociology. Among other students I interviewed for a I Hate podcast are CCA sophomore Erin Combs and SDA's Joy Rupert. Like Christina, both are amazing role models who are trying to break down stereotypes and promote harmony and unity. This is so important in our school district, especially during a year where there have been several hate incidents in our schools. You can listen to the podcast at anihate.org. In my I Hate journey this year, I came across a report by the Stop AAPI Hate youth campaign that had a rather sobering statistic that one quarter, or 25%, of Asian American and Pacific Islander young adults have been targets of racism since the start of the pandemic. This includes verbal harassment, cyberbullying, being coughed on, and even called racial slurs. There is student hate against other groups as well. At Annihilate, we are trying to educate, debate, annihilate hate because we students are outlets for change at school and beyond. The fear that caused me to found Annihilate has gradually been replaced by a better understanding of others and by resolve to share different voices and to bring empathy, unity, and harmony to our differences. And as Mahatma Gandhi once said, our ability to reach unity in diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization.